In today's assignment, we're going to be looking at some advanced layer techniques in addition to the things that we learned in the last assignment. The files that you need for this are both at bit.ly's, bit.ly/layers-diesel and bit.ly/diesel-type. Go ahead and download those two files and we'll begin. So start with the file you downloaded called Advanced Layers Diesel. And I'll show you what we're headed for. When we get done, it's going to look like this, something close to this, which is very different than where we're at right now. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get these holes cut out of this grill layer. And we're going to do it with a tool we haven't used before. You should be on the metal grill layer for this. If you're not, go ahead and click on metal grill. Come over here to the shape tool. It's way down towards the bottom of the toolbar. Click on it and you'll see a bunch of different shapes. And I want you to choose the ellipse tool. Now this next step is really important. Your ellipse tool, there's a menu up at the top. It's probably set to shape. You need to change that. If it's set to shape, this trick isn't going to work. Change your function up at the top to path. And that's the only change you need to make right now up at the top. Now, the shape tool, drawing a path, works a lot like the tool that you're already familiar with, the elliptical marquee tool. If you click and drag, it'll draw a circle. If you hold Shift while you're drawing this circle, it'll make it a perfect circle. If you hold Alt while you're drawing this circle, it'll draw from the center. That's all just like the marquee tool. Something that's different, though, is when you're done drawing your shape and you let up on it, it doesn't turn into a selection. It just sits there. That's your path. And if you want to change that path, you go to this tool right above your shape tool. It's called the Path Selection tool. It's a black arrow. If you don't see a black arrow, click and hold on it, and you'll see that there's a white arrow and a black arrow. You don't want the direct selection tool. You want the Path Selection tool, the black arrow. Click on that. And then if you want to adjust your path, you click on it with the black arrow. You can drag it around and put it where you want. If you drew it too big, you can transform it. Control T. Grab a handle. And you want to transform it. I'm going to make that circle just a little bit bigger than the hole that you're trying to cover up. So get one circle drawn with the circle shape tool. Lock it in. If you did a free transform, come up here and click the check mark to lock it in. If you didn't do a free transform, you don't need to do this step. And then with this black arrow, the path selection tool selected, click on your shape to make sure that it has these little handles so that it's selected. And we're going to copy it. You've done this before too. Hold down the Alt key and your black arrow will get a plus sign next to it. Click and drag, and it should drag a copy of that path for you. Drag it straight to the right. Let up on your mouse and do it again. Alt, drag. Let up on your mouse. Do it one more time. Alt, drag. And it'll drag a copy, and now you've got 4 circles right in a row, just like that. Now's a good time to save. We've done something with our file. Go to File, Save As, and save your file as Diesel, your name. Save it as Diesel, first name, last name. Save it in your H drive, the drive with your student number on it. Save it in your H drive. All right. Now you got 4 circles. You know how to make copies. You could just keep alt clicking and dragging circles all day, but there's a faster way to do it. We can select all 4 of these circles at once. If you take your black arrow over here where there's nothing and click and drag, it makes a selection box. Drag that selection box so that it surrounds your 4 circles, your 4 path circles right there. Now they're all selected. Hold down the Alt key and drag all 4 at the same time. Drag them up to the top just like that. That's a lot faster than Alt dragging 4 individual circles. And now do the same thing. Take your mouse way up here, draw a selection box around all 8 circles, hold down Alt, and drag 8 circles down so that they cover your bottom circles. Once you've got all 16 circles covered by your ellipse tool, take that black arrow one more time, draw a box to surround all 16 circles so they're all selected. This next step is key. Up at the top, in your option bar, there's a menu, Path Operations. There's like these 3 buttons. You want the first button of these 3 buttons, Path Operations. Click on that and choose Subtract Front Shape. Okay? If it's set to Combine, the next step's not going to work. So you need to set it to Subtract. That sets the function of this path. So then the next thing that we do is going to cut these holes out of our layer. So you're on the metal grill layer. Got your paths. They're all set to subtract. Go to the layer menu, pull down to Vector Mask, and choose Current Path. It's going to make a mask for us right over here. See those gray circles? That's a sign of a vector mask. You're familiar with masks. We've done layer masks a few times in here. The vector mask is similar, but instead of being made out of pixels, it's being made with paths. And it's editable. If you want to change something in your path, come over here and click on your mask so you get the gray circles there selected. And then with your path selection tool, you can grab one of these circles and move it. So say you drew a circle and you can still see your grill a little bit through there. Just grab one of these circles and move it and cover up the hole. Okay, you can drag them around. You could do Control T. You could resize them. You could do anything you wanted to with them. You just have to make sure that you're clicked on this vector mask over here for it to make that change into the mask. Nice. Save it. All right. Next, we're going to make this rust look darker. If you look at the end version, this rust looks rustier than this current version. To darken it up, click on your rust layer. The effect is going to come up on top of our selected layer. So we want our rust layer to be selected. And then we're going to go down here to our adjustment layer menu. This is a new layer skill. Adjustment layers. It's this little half black, half white circle down here at the bottom of the layers panel. Click on that. Get a whole bunch of choices. And we'll be looking at other things that you can do with adjustments later. Today we're going to use curves. Select curves. And you see that a new layer pops up. This is your adjustment layer. And to change the curve, we're going to darken it up. You just go right here in the middle of this diagonal line. Click and hold on this line and drag down and to the right. As you drag down and to the right, it'll darken up. There's no perfect setting. You just kind of eyeball it, but you can kind of get it like just a little curve. Don't go crazy. Don't drag it down so it turns black. Just want to make it look a little grungier. Now, the cool thing about adjustment layers is we've darkened this up. Say you really messed it up. Say you did something like that, and you come back tomorrow and you're like, ugh, I really blew it. You can just come here and you can either turn that layer off, your original is still there, or you can go back to what you made yesterday and fix it. Adjustment layers are pretty powerful and they're very undoable. You're not wrecking anything, which is pretty nice. Way to go. Save it. The next thing we're going to do is called a knockout layer. You see here, you can see the rust. Down here, you can start to see through the layers. They're all kind of blending together. It's an interesting trick. It's called a knockout layer, and we're going to make it right now. You want to be on your top layer. Click on Metal Grill, and click on the new layer icon. Right down here at the bottom, this little sticky note looking icon. Click that. We're going to call our new layer Knockout. naming is always a good thing, naming your layers appropriately. And we're going to make a gradient. So go over here to your gradient tool. And there's some settings we need to set across the top. First, your gradient menu should be set to the second gradient over. Your foreground to transparent gradient should be chosen. Okay, it looks like a color, whatever color is your foreground color, fading away to a checkerboard. Don't worry about what color your foreground is yet. Just choose that gradient. Coming over here, there's 5 gradient choices. I'm going to choose that first one, linear gradient. Make sure your mode is normal, your opacity is 100, dither and transparency are turned on. Then come down here, and you want black to be your foreground color. A real easy way to make black your foreground color is to click this little button right here. It sets your default colors. It'll make your foreground color black and your background color white. Now with black your foreground color, your little preview here shows black fading away to checkerboard. Checkerboard in Photoshop represents transparency, see-throughness. And then come down here to the bottom of your screen, click right at the bottom of your image and click and drag straight up about halfway. If you want to go straight easily, hold shift. It'll make it perfectly straight. About halfway up, let up on your mouse before you let up on shift, and it'll add this nice dusky black gradient that covers about half your page. Now we're going to make it so that the area that is black knocks out through these layers all the way down to the bottom. Here's how. Go down to your layer styles. Now we've learned about layer styles before. Down here, this FX button, click on that and go to blending options all the way at the top of this menu. In the blending options, there's 2 changes you need to make for this to work. The first one is your fill opacity. Now there's opacity and fill opacity. You got to change the fill opacity for it to work. Fill opacity, it hides whatever's in the layer, just like opacity would. But fill opacity doesn't hide any layer styles that you add. So when we do the knockout's still going to be visible. Change your knockout menu. There's 2 choices, shallow and deep. Because we're only knocking out 4 layers, it doesn't really matter. Either one, shallow or deep, will have the same effect. If you had a lot more layers, like 50 layers, shallow would go, part way and deep would go further. And click OK. And save it. All right, we're doing great. We are over halfway done. Next thing you need to do is open up this other file you downloaded. It's just called Diesel. And you need to get it over into your other file. So switch to your Move tool, first tool in the toolbox. Click and hold on your text and drag it all the way up. Drag, 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 drag. Don't let up on the mouse. All the way up to the other tab. Drag, 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 drag down. Don't let up on the mouse. And then drop it down here. Once you get it dragged over, move it into place right down here at the bottom, just like that, centered right at the bottom. Okay, then you can come over here and close this Diesel tab if you like. Now this next effect is probably my favorite part of this assignment. It's a great trick. It's a super easy trick in Photoshop, and it looks super pro. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to make this Diesel look like it's cut out of metal. And we're going to do it with this rust that we already have. Click on your rust layer. Now to do what we're going to do is called a clipping mask. And to do a clipping mask, you've got to have the picture that you want to cut out directly above the shape that you want to cut it out of. So we want to cut rust out of Diesel. But you can see we need rust in the background and inside Diesel, so we have to make a copy. So before you drag rust, hold down the Alt key, hold down Alt, and then drag the layer up, 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 all the way to the top, and then let up on your mouse. When you do that, it'll drag a copy. You got rust, and there's rust copy. Okay, make sure you've got 2. If your top layer says rust and you lost your rust down here, undo and try it again. Hold Alt, drag it up. And to do a clipping mask, there's a few different ways to do it. Probably the easiest is this. Just right click on your layer name, right click, and say create clipping mask. When you do that, rust gets cut out and it's only visible in the layer directly beneath it, the diesel layer. Pretty cool. It doesn't really look like it's chopped out of metal yet, though. It's super flat. So we're going to add some styles. Now the styles need to get added to the diesel layer. Okay, if you add styles to rust, they're not going to show up. You got to add them to diesel. So click on diesel, come down here to FX, and choose bevel and emboss. Bevel and emboss will give it kind of a 3D look. If your layer style box comes up on top of everything, you can grab this white bar here and move it out of the way. This looks too soft, looks kind of pillowy. Let's shrink it down. Take your size right here to 2. That looks nice. And then let's add a drop shadow. Come down here, click on drop shadow, and you can leave the default settings for drop shadow. That looks sharp. And then click OK. And save it. You're doing great. We only got 1.5 things left to do. Almost done. When you look at this, one of the striking things is that this metal grill looks like it's melting. We got to do that now. Go to your metal grill layer. Now, to do this trick, unfortunately, our mask has to be made permanent. We have to turn the mask into a permanent cutout. So you want to make sure that your mask is doing exactly what you want it to do, because you're not going to have a chance to change it after we do these steps. So you got your mask, you right-click on the vector mask. And to make it permanent, you say rasterize vector mask. It'll turn your vector mask into a layer mask. Now, we still have a mask we got to get rid of. This is now a layer mask, which if you wanted to change it at this point, you would use your paintbrush, white and black, the way you know how to change layer masks. To make a layer mask permanent, you right-click on the layer mask, and you say Apply Layer Mask. Select that. Now you see in the metal grill layer, there's no mask. And if you look closely, you can see that the holes are cut out. There's transparency in the middle of those holes now. But now that we've got it permanent, we can do the next step. Go to the filter menu up at the top of the screen, pull down to the Liquify filter towards the top of that menu. Filter, Liquify. It should be set to the first button over here. There's a few different tools in Liquify. We're going to choose this first one, Forward Warp. Come over here to your brush size. Set your brush size to 160 and set your brush pressure to 50. 160 will make your brush exactly the same size as these holes. Brush pressure 50 will make it so you don't destroy it. It'll be a little subtle. And then just click and drag across your page. You can play with it a little bit if you want. Don't make it too crazy, be kind of subtle. It's supposed to look sort of like it's just kind of melting away. And when you get something you think looks okay, click OK. And it looks pretty cool. Liquify is a pretty fun filter to play with. It's very destructive though. It's you can mess something up pretty quick, so you got to be careful with it. Save that. I got one step left. This is an easy one. We're going to make a frame. You see this? You see this black border around the outside? That's the last step. Go to your top layer, which is Rust Copy. Make a new blank layer. Click the little sticky note to make a new layer. Name it Frame. And here's the settings. To make your frame, first we're going to select all. So you can go to the Select menu and say All, or if you like shortcuts, Control A. You get a selection around your whole document. And then go to Edit, Stroke. Edit, Stroke. Stroke is graphic design speak for outline. And these are your settings right here. The width of your stroke is 5 pixels. Color is black. If it's not set to black, click on that color chip there and make it black. Location, you want to be inside. Mode normal, opacity 100. and click OK. And you do that, it'll add a 5-pixel black stroke right around the inside edge of your picture. Control D to deselect. Control D. And there it is. You're done. Save it one more time, and then save as to hand it in to your desktop shortcut for whatever hour class you have. Nice job. See you next time.